Thanks for Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, I think most of you, if not all of you, have heard of the nuisance lawsuits that Alvin Bragg, the New York or Manhattan, I think it is, District Attorney General is using to harass President Trump and try and interfere with and harass his presidential campaign. For that, I just want to talk about Bragg, but particularly about his role in what was a legal or extra legal unit, a special legal harassment unit to harass, impede, frustrate, and undermine the policies of President Trump and the Trump administration. Now, I'd suspected something like this was possibly existed, but I didn't think it would be as brazen and as organised as it was, and as well funded as it was. Now, when Bragg was running for DA election in an area where Democrats never lose, he was boasting about what he perceived as his credentials, in as much as he was, I think, deputy DA or the deputy in a unit that launched over 100 lawsuits against the Trump administration and the Trump policies, and he was citing this as a credential for why he should be DA, so he could continue his work of harassing, whether it be President Trump in office and his administration, or harassing his candidacy for the upcoming presidential election. Now, to me, that should have been there and then a blatant disqualification for Mr. Bragg holding any sort of office. But I don't think he won the election because of that, but rather, he was a favoured Democrat candidate because they wanted him to be in a position to do this harassment. Say what you want about the globalists. The Democrats are, if anything, globalist flunkies and stooges to the last person there. They're very committed and very focused on stopping anyone who questions or opposes or wants to water down the globalization project. They're very committed, superbly well resourced, any resources they need to stop anybody who opposes the globalization project are in their disposal. On top of it, any collateral damage, be it to the legal system, be it to society, be it to any collateral damage is also acceptable in pursuit of the globalist project. Now, I just want you to sort of consider this and consider its wider ramifications. Bragg is and he's no intellect. He's no legal intellect. Far from it. He's a fucking punk, in my opinion. Now, he's in a unit that's launched over 100 legal suits against the Trump administration. Their job is to frustrate and hamper and undermine Trump's policies. Now, has this ever happened in history? I don't know that it has. Has any president had to face that degree of legal harassment and undermining use or rather abuse and perversion of the law and the legal system purely to be a tool and a device to frustrate and harass, even where there's no legal merit to the cases? Remember, there's over 100 here. So if you look at the time, particularly that first 3 years, and this is on top of the Mueller investigation and the fake impeachments and so on, the first 2 years in particular of the Trump administration, before the Democrats took a majority in the House, the House of Representatives, then they used the House of Representatives to harass Trump. Before that, the first 2 years, they were using the legal system to do it. Now, with over 100 cases, that they're launching effectively a case a week. Every week, there's a new case that they're putting up against against the Trump administration's policies and initiatives and so on. So that's a legal fucking avalanche. When I look back on say, the legal cases that were brought against Democrat presidents like Bill Clinton or Jimmy Carter and those sorts of things. There's not even a tiny fraction of the amount of cases there. So we have to look at the harassment machine of the Trump administration that Alvin Bragg was an integral part of. Was very unusual in terms of political legal history of the United States or anywhere, I would think. So anyway, he's citing about this. Now his sort of I'd noticed some of the lawsuits to stop the Trump administration from preventing illegals coming into the United States or turning them back at the border and these sorts of things. The Democrats or this the globalist controlled and funded and directed Democrats went into hyperdrive to stop Trump. Now I saw some of the legal cases that were brought by this unit that Mr. Bragg. I didn't make the connection back at the time. I have since, but I looked at some of these cases, and again, the wording is sloppy. They look like they're done by a first-year law student activist, and not a very bright one at that. It's sloppy, piss weak, piss poor fucking work. Now, again, as I've mentioned other essays, I've got some understanding of these matters. I've had to file documents in court. I've had to prepare legal briefs and legal documents. Not in immigration law or anything. It's been business and commercial law, contract law, that sort of thing. But I've had to do that and had to make sure that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. There's supporting evidence there. There's the whole thing. It has to be good quality documents. Otherwise, you've got a good chance the judge is going to throw it out A, or B, your case isn't going to get anywhere because you've got piss poor evidence and supporting documents and so on. So I've got some knowledge of this, and I also know what it's like to be up against the other side that hasn't put such rigorous work into their legal their legal documents last minute. They've got a skinny budget or whatever it might be. They just haven't put the time into it. They put a junior onto it. And I've noticed some of the, as I was doing this, some of the junior lawyers that around, even the midweight lawyers, I could easily beat them in court. And I was surprised by that. I thought that, a qualified lawyer, they'd wipe the floor with me. But it wasn't that way at all. Lawyers with 15 years experience and I was beating them handily, and I was surprised by that because I'm not a lawyer, but I understood the business aspects and the contractual legal obligation. I understood that side of it, but probably more so than they did. But just the document preparation and the filings and that's I assumed that I'd be the one scrambling to get, but not so. But anyway, coming back to the thing here, I looked at their filings that were made in some of the earlier lawsuits against the Trump administration, and I was absolutely staggered that these things could get to court. I thought, what? And again, absolutely piss weak work of a first year, low caliber, fifth tier college law student. It was that bad. I'd be embarrassed to put that up into a court case, but somehow these people were getting emergency hearings. So if the Trump administration would announce on Friday morning that they would do, such and such a policy, or Trump would, do a presidential decree or something like that, and they would release whatever documents they had. I didn't think they actually did very good work, but that's beside the point. It was good enough. So they did that by the afternoon or by the following morning. This unit that Alvin Bragg was part of, this unit that was set up purposefully. The sole purpose of this unit was to harass the Trump presidency. That was the sole purpose. Well, it wasn't to discover law breaking. It was that was its sole job, to harass the Trump presidency. And I was surprised how quickly they put it together and how well funded it was. I thought there were different groups back in the time doing it. I noticed the similarity of the poor quality documentation that they were getting up into the courts. I noticed that, and it seemed to be like it was written by the same person, which sort of took me a bit by surprise. But I didn't put the time into chasing it all down back then. But now we know it was this unit that Alvin Bragg was in, which was purposefully set up for the sole. Its only role was to undermine and harass the Trump presidency and the policies they were pursuing, which were policies the globalists didn't like, such as restricting immigration to be qualified, people that could speak English. That sort of they were able not only to produce paperwork, within hours of the Trump policies being enacted and put out into the public domain, but they were able to get emergency hearings, They didn't have to wait. They didn't have to file the documents and wait 6 months or 3 months or wait until they were the next one, the next cab in the line. They didn't have to do any of that. They were able to bypass all the waiting, all the delays, any of the having to stand in line. No. They could get straight into a senior judge with the authority to stop and put a stay on the Trump policies. Now, if I want to get a judge to look at that, I've got to convince them that there's some huge emergency, or I've got to damn well wait my turn, which can be 12 months for some of these judges. But these people, these activists, the Alvin Bragg flunkies and students, they didn't have to wait at all. They could get immediate hearing, emergency. They had instant emergency access to these judges that had the power to do the stays, to put a stop to the Trump policies. Now, not only could they get the paperwork filed in emergency, they could also get the hearing set, and they could also get the verdict in an emergency setting. Now, I looked at how was it an emergency? What was it emergency? And this is the thing. There's this activist unit harassing Trump with activist district attorneys, activist clerks in the court, clerks that are filing the documents, who will give emergency access, access to activist judges, instant access to activist judges, and instant verdicts, and with incredibly low bars of evidence to meet. So one of the cases, the evidence was they'd recorded one of Trump's speeches that when he was a candidate for president. They recorded one of his speeches where he said something, words to the effect of, the South Americans aren't sending their best people. Within that group of people, there are people, there are criminals and so on. So in one of these cases, this activist group were able to go to an activist judge, get the emergency hearing, and say, well, but look what he said there in that election speech there. He said they weren't sending their best people. What that is, we say that's racism and fascism. It's Nazi talk against brown people, which means they're racist, and therefore you have to put a stop to an activist judge. So the activist fucking judge, on the strength of that, is that evidence? Fuck me. If I was a judge in court, that's not fucking evidence. Piss off. Get out of my court, Jesus. Produce hard evidence. Show me where the vibe of the policy's been created by people who are racist. So you had to put a stop to it to stop the racists. Fuck. That was the standard of proof that was being used. So zero burden of proof. There's no argument against it. The other side isn't allowed to put an argument. It's a fucking railroad bit of bullshit. But that's what this unit that Alvin Bragg was doing. There's no high quality legal arguments here. This is all straight political harassment here, using activist judges and activist legal practitioners, activist clerks, activists everywhere you look, to do this. Now, on the other side of it, the original Attorney General of the Trump administration was Jeff Sessions, who seems like a decent man, trying to do the right thing. He was completely the wrong guy for that that brawling type of style of legal lawfare. This required a real bruiser to okay, this is where we're at. That's how you want to boogie. Let's boogie. It had to be someone prepared to do that. Now, we can talk about, well, why are we allowing activist judges and activists? It's too late. The horse has bolted on that. There are just too many fucking activists being appointed everywhere, across the legal system, all across the Western world, by the way. But we do need to do something about, if you deviate from the application of the law, you just can't arbitrarily say, yeah, I don't like that law. That's not good enough. So there has to be an accountability mechanism for judges. If you want to do that, if you want to make that vote, that's fine. But the very next day, it has to go to an appeal court. So the whole appeal process must be allowed to escalate or something. And I'm happy to sit down and write up some documents on that. But we really need to stop this activism. It's not accepted, because this Alvin Bragg unit was able to use a network of activists all over the place to harass and frustrate the Trump administration's policies without having to provide any, in my view, without having to provide any material evidence to support the stays and so on that they were doing. And similarly, hopefully, Mr. Trump wins in 2024, and if so, he urgently needs to set up a legal unit inside the White House to combat what will inevitably be another round of harassment from the likes of the Alvin Braggs, and they will be superbly resourced. And there needs to be a way of fighting back and stopping their abuse of the legal system. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.